The line moved slowly at Elysian Coffee's flagship location, each customer bathed in the golden afternoon light, filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus Chen stood seventh in queue, wearing faded jeans and a jacket 2 seasons past trendy. His sneakers scuffed against polished concrete floors that cost more per square foot than most people's monthly rent. Nobody looked at him twice. Behind the counter, Vanessa worked the register with practiced efficiency. Her emerald green apron crisp and perfectly tied. Her smile activated and deactivated like a switch. Warm for the woman in the ivory cashmere coat. Non-existent for the delivery driver counting coins. Marcus watched her lean toward her co-worker, a tall guy with gelled hair and a name tag reading Derek, shift lead. Her whisper carried just far enough. "Can you believe Chen's collecting another award next week? Man probably hasn't pulled a shot in 5 years." Derek smirked. "Dude's never even been here. Too busy playing CEO in his penthouse." Marcus's grip tightened on his phone. The leather case creaked. Vanessa straightened as the line shuffled forward, her voice bright and hollow. "Next guest, please." A businessman in royal blue stepped up, received her full attention, and left with his cortado and a genuine laugh at whatever joke she'd made. Then came Marcus's turn. Vanessa's eyes barely met his. Her smile didn't reach them. "What can I get you?" "Just an Americano, please, medium." She punched buttons without looking up. $7.50, Marcus blinked. The menu board behind her clearly read $5.75. "The sign says, 'Premium beans today.'" Her tone sharpened. $7.50. Derek moved closer, arms crossed. His body language said everything his mouth didn't need to. Marcus pulled out his card and paid. The transaction beeped. Vanessa turned away before the receipt printed, already greeting the woman behind him with sudden warmth. "Americano," she called to the barista, then muttered to Derek, "Another nobody trying to act bougie in here." Marcus moved to the waiting area. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was his company. His name on the wall in brushed gold letters. His signature on every employee contract promising dignity, respect, and fair treatment. He'd come to observe. Instead, he'd become invisible. 2 weeks earlier, Marcus had stood in his downtown penthouse office 43 floors above the city that raised him. The Seattle skyline glittered through windows, cleaned daily by people whose names he'd stopped learning years ago. His COO, Jennifer Walsh, had placed a tablet on his glass desk. Flagship location. Customer satisfaction scores dropped 18% in 6 months. Marcus scrolled through the data. Complaints about service, about atmosphere, about feeling unwelcome. The words blurred together, but the pattern screamed. What's regional management saying? That it's isolated incidents. Overly sensitive customers. Jennifer's expression said she didn't believe it. "I think you should see for yourself. Schedule a visit." "I'll go next Tuesday." "No." Jennifer leaned forward. "Go undercover. No entourage. No warning. See what actually happens." Marcus had built Elysian Coffee from nothing. A cart on Pine Street 12 years ago, slinging espresso to investment bankers who barely acknowledged his existence. His parents had run a Chinese restaurant in the International District, working brutal hours while customers complained about MSG and mispronounced their names. He remembered his mother's hands, scarred from hot oil and rough from bleach, remembered the way she smiled at every customer, even when they treated her like furniture. After she died, Marcus found her journal. One entry haunted him. "Success means my son will never have to bow his head, so he built an empire on different principles. Fair wages, $15 minimum when the city required 10. Health insurance from day one. Profit sharing. Respect embedded in training manuals and employee handbooks. Dignity isn't negotiable was printed on every breakroom poster. But somewhere between the first café and the 30th, between local business and national brand, Marcus had stopped visiting locations unannounced. He trusted his managers, trusted his systems, trusted that his values would somehow self-replicate without his presence. Jennifer's words echoed now. Trust but verify. Marcus had spent the last 2 weeks preparing. He'd ordered clothes from thrift stores online, studied his own customer service protocols, created a fake email and phone number. He'd even practiced not introducing himself, letting the silence sit where his name usually lived. The plan was simple. Walk in, order coffee, observe for an hour. Document any issues, report back to Jennifer, fix what needed fixing. He hadn't expected to become the issue. Now standing in the waiting area of his flagship location, Marcus understood what his mother's journal really meant. Success didn't erase invisibility. It just changed who got to be seen. Americano for whoever. Vanessa placed the cup on the pickup counter without looking. The coffee sloshed slightly, a ring forming on the wood. Marcus took it and retreated to the corner booth. Leather seats custom designed by a firm in Portland, tables made from reclaimed wood he'd personally selected. He'd sat in this exact spot 5 years ago to sign the papers making Elysian a multi-million-dollar corporation. The coffee tasted fine, good even. The beans were indeed premium, exactly as he'd specified in last month's sourcing meeting. But the price was still wrong. He watched Vanessa move through customers like an algorithm optimized for minimum effort. Young white woman in blush pink sundress, full smile, extra whipped cream, chat about weekend plans. Middle-aged black man in a suit, perfunctory nod, no small talk, card reader thrust forward. Derek patrolled the floor with territorial energy, adjusting chairs that didn't need adjusting, wiping tables already clean. His eyes constantly scanned, evaluating, judging. When they landed on Marcus, something flickered. Assessment followed by dismissal. A young woman entered, maybe 22, backpack heavy with textbooks. Her skin was deep brown, her hair pulled into a practical ponytail. She wore a university hoodie and anxiety like a second jacket. Marcus recognized the type. His mother had served hundreds like her in the restaurant. Students surviving on ramen and ambition. The woman approached the counter. Vanessa's smile vanished. What do you want? Not what can I get you, not welcome to Elysian, just what do you want? A vanilla latte? Small? Vanessa's eyes narrowed. $5.25. The woman pulled out a card. Chase debit, Marcus noted, nothing fancy. Vanessa took it but didn't swipe immediately. This your card? Yes. You sure? Name matches your ID. The woman's face flushed. Around them, other customers shifted uncomfortably. Marcus's fingers gripped his phone under the table. Derek materialized beside Vanessa. Problem. Just verifying. You know how it is. Vanessa's tone carried implications that needed no translation. The young woman's hands trembled as she pulled out her driver's license. Here, see? Alicia Morrison. Same name. Vanessa studied both cards with theatrical slowness. Finally, she swiped. We have to check. Lots of fraud these days. Alicia nodded, grabbed her receipt and moved to the waiting area. Her eyes were wet. Nobody else had been asked for ID, not the businessman. Not the woman in blush pink, nobody. When Alicia's latte was ready, Vanessa called, Latte for... Alicia? It's Alicia. Right, whatever. Vanessa turned away. Alicia stared at the cup for 5 seconds. Then she left it on the counter and walked out, backpack bouncing against her spine. Derek and Vanessa exchanged a look. Something unspoken passed between them. Satisfaction, maybe. Or confirmation of a shared worldview Marcus didn't want to name. His phone was already recording, discreetly propped against the napkin dispenser. The video wasn't great, but the audio was clear. Every word, every tone, every casual cruelty disguised as policy. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't incompetence. It wasn't one bad employee having a rough day. This was systematic. And it wore his company's emerald green apron. Marcus sat frozen in the custom leather booth he'd personally selected. Around him, The café hummed with the carefully designed ambience he'd spent years perfecting. Jazz at precise volume. Lighting warm but not dim. The scent of ethically sourced beans roasted to his exact specifications. None of it mattered. His reflection stared back from the polished espresso machine behind the counter. Unrecognized, dismissed, invisible in his own empire. The abandoned latte still sat where Alicia left it, a $5 monument to failure. His failure. He'd written the training manuals, approved the hiring protocols, signed off on the Dignity for All initiative that regional managers praised in quarterly reports. But words on paper meant nothing when Vanessa could weaponize a name, when Derek could patrol like he owned the place, when a college student couldn't buy coffee without interrogation. Marcus's parents flashed through his mind. His father bent over a wok at 2 a.m. His mother's forced smile when customers snapped fingers for service. They'd worked themselves into early graves building something better for their son, and he'd built this. Vanessa laughed at something Derek said. The sound was light, casual, unburdened by the weight of what they'd just done. To them this was Tuesday. Routine. Maybe even necessary. Marcus's phone felt heavy in his pocket. He had evidence now. Video, audio, timestamps. He could walk into his lawyer's office tomorrow and start termination paperwork. Clean house. Issue a public apology. Move on. But something deeper gnawed at him. This wasn't about 2 employees. Regional management had dismissed 17 complaints. 17. Someone had looked at pattern after pattern and chosen silence. His mother's voice rose from memory. Accented English wrapped around iron certainty. You cannot build on broken foundation. Must tear down. Must start again. Marcus took a long breath. The coffee had gone cold in his hands. He wasn't just going to fire Vanessa and Derek. He was going to find out how deep the rot went. Even if it meant risking everything he'd built. Especially if it meant that 12 years ago, Marcus had pushed a modified coffee cart through Seattle's financial district at 5:30 a.m., arriving before the first executives emerged from their buildings. His product was exceptional. Beans sourced from a family farm in Guatemala, roasted in small batches in his studio apartment's kitchen. Nobody cared. They'd walk past him to Starbucks half a block away, or worse, look directly through him as if he were landscape. One managing director told him flat out, "Your coffee's probably fine, but I need a brand I can trust." Marcus had smiled and nodded, exactly as his mother taught him. Never argue with customers. Never show anger. Just serve, smile, survive. His mother, Chen, had arrived in Seattle in 1987 with $50 and a sister's address. By 1990, she and Marcus's father ran Chen's kitchen in the International District. 80 seats, brutal hours, customers who complained about prices and praised authenticity in the same breath. Marcus grew up in that restaurant, did homework at table 6, learned English from regulars and Mandarin from his parents' exhausted late-night conversations. He watched his mother scrub floors after 16-hour shifts, watched her ignore racist comments from drunk customers because we need their money. Xiaoming. She died when Marcus was 19, a stroke at 53. His father followed 8 months later, heart attack while closing the restaurant alone. Marcus inherited debt, equipment, and a lesson written in his mother's journal, the entry he found after her funeral. America promises freedom but delivers only choices. Bow your head or starve. I bow so Xiaoming never has to. He'd read those words and made a vow, build something different. A business where dignity wasn't rationed, where employees could stand tall, where customers of every background felt welcome. The coffee cart became a café. The café became 5 locations. 5 became 30. Each expansion brought investors, board meetings, operational manuals. Marcus insisted on policies radical for the industry. Healthcare, profit sharing, respectful treatment codified into every contract. Dignity isn't negotiable, became his motto. He printed it on aprons, painted it on break room walls, wove it into employee orientations. But somewhere between vision and scale, between intention and execution, the system he built developed blind spots. He'd trusted regional managers to maintain standards, trusted HR to investigate complaints properly, trusted that his values would replicate automatically, like DNA coding into every cell. Sitting in this booth now, Marcus understood his fatal assumption. Culture doesn't self-replicate. It decays. And he'd been too far removed to notice the rot spreading beneath perfect quarterly reports and positive press coverage. His mother had bowed her head so he could stand tall. And he'd stood so tall he stopped seeing the people still on their knees. Marcus spent the next 40 minutes watching, taking mental notes, recording when possible. A Hispanic man with paint-stained clothes ordered a black coffee. Vanessa made him repeat himself twice, claimed she couldn't understand his accent. The man's English was perfect, better than Marcus's actually. No trace of the Chinese grammatical structures that still occasionally slipped into his own syntax. An elderly white woman in a mustard-yellow cardigan received a free cookie with her order. "Because you're such a loyal customer," Vanessa chirped. The woman had never been there before. Marcus watched her study the menu like a first-timer. Derek approached a teenager with a laptop. Black kid, maybe 16, working on homework. "You gonna order something else?" "We need the tables." The kid held up his receipt. "I bought a latte 20 minutes ago." "Still can't camp out all day." Derek's arms crossed, his body angled to loom. The teenager packed up and left. At the table beside him, 2 white college students had been sitting for over an hour with empty cups. Derek walked right past them. Marcus's jaw ached from clenching. His phone's memory was filling with evidence, but evidence of what exactly? Individual prejudice? Systemic policy? The distinction mattered legally, morally, practically. He needed to understand the chain of command. Who hired Vanessa and Derek? Who supervised them? Who reviewed complaints and decided they lacked merit? Marcus pulled up Elysian's internal employee portal on his phone, using his hidden executive access. Vanessa Chen, no relation, common surname, hired 8 months ago. Supervisor David Torres, Regional Manager, Northwest Division, Derek Morrison. Hired 14 months ago. Also supervised by David Torres Morrison. Wait. Marcus scrolled back through his photos. The image of Alicia's driver's license, captured when she'd held it up. Alicia Morrison. Same last name as Derek. His pulse quickened. He pulled up social media. Found Derek's Instagram in 30 seconds. Public profile, no privacy settings. Scrolled through vacation photos, gym selfies, and there. Family BBQ from 2 months ago. Derek's arm around a young woman in a university hoodie. Caption, "Little sis heading back to UW. Gonna miss you, Alicia." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Derek knew Alicia. She'd come to her brother's workplace, probably had before. And Vanessa had humiliated her while Derek watched and did nothing. Or worse, maybe Derek did it deliberately. Maybe this was payback for some sibling argument, some family drama, amplified through the power imbalance of his shift lead authority. Marcus's hands shook as he typed David Torres's name into the employee directory. Regional Manager, 48 years old, 15 years with the company. Glowing performance reviews, managed 12 locations across Washington. Then Marcus saw it, buried in the family emergency contact section. Derek Morrison, nephew. The rot didn't start with Vanessa. It flowed downward from management, protected by family connections, enabled by a system Marcus had built to empower employees, but hadn't equipped with adequate oversight. 17 complaints. All dismissed, all filtered through David Torres, who had every reason to protect his nephew, and by extension everyone his nephew supervised or worked beside. Marcus stood abruptly. His chair scraped against polished concrete. A few customers glanced over. He needed to leave before he did something he'd regret, But leaving meant letting this continue. Staying meant risking exposure before he understood the full scope. His phone buzzed. Jennifer, board meeting in 90 minutes. Don't be late, the expansion funding vote. $30 million, 3 new cities, hundreds of jobs. Investor confidence balanced on the blade of this single meeting. If Marcus blew everything up now, exposed the discrimination, fired management, launched an investigation, the board would panic. Investors would flee. The expansion would die. But if he stayed silent, even for 90 minutes, how many more Elysias would walk out humiliated? Marcus looked at the counter. Vanessa was helping a woman in ivory, all warmth and professionalism. The performance was flawless. To anyone who didn't know better, this looked like excellent service at a thriving café. That was the cruelest part. The rot was invisible unless you were the one being rotted. He moved toward the door. Every step felt like betrayal. Of his mother, of Elysia, of the values he'd sworn to uphold. His hand touched the brass handle. "Excuse me," Marcus turned. An older black woman in a ruby-red jacket stood from her table. She'd been there the whole time, working on a laptop, watching everything just like he had. "You recorded what happened to that girl." Not a question. Her eyes held his. "What are you going to do about it?" The cafe fell quiet. Vanessa and Derek both stared. Other customers watched. Marcus's mouth opened. The truth sat on his tongue, heavy and dangerous. Marcus looked at the woman in the ruby-red jacket. Her eyes held steady, waiting for an answer that mattered. "I'm going to do something," he said quietly. "I promise you that." Vanessa's laugh cut through the tension. "Sir, if you have a complaint, you can fill out a comment card." She gestured to a small acrylic holder on the counter, empty except for dust. "I'd like to speak with your manager," Marcus said, keeping his voice level. "Derek's right here." Vanessa's smile was all edges. "He's the shift lead." Derek approached with studied casualness, wiping his hands on his apron, though they weren't wet. "What seems to be the problem?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "I witnessed concerning treatment of multiple customers in the last hour. Different standards applied to different people. I'd like to discuss it." Derek's expression shifted, polite confusion masking something harder underneath. "Concerning how?" "A young woman was asked for ID verification. Others weren't. A teenager was told to leave after 20 minutes. Others have sat longer. A customer was overcharged." Marcus kept his tone neutral, factual. "We verify payment methods when fraud risk is elevated," Derek said smoothly. "It's company policy. And we manage seating during peak hours based on occupancy needs." It didn't look like policy. It looked like profiling. The word landed like a stone in water. Ripples of discomfort spread through nearby customers. Derek's jaw tightened. "That's a serious accusation. One I don't appreciate." He stepped closer, using height as leverage. "We have security cameras throughout the cafe. They'll show standard customer service interactions and you making baseless claims." Marcus felt a flicker of something. Not quite hope, but possibility. "You have cameras?" "Of course. And they'll prove my staff did nothing wrong." Derek's confidence was absolute. "So unless you have actual evidence of discrimination, I suggest you reconsider your accusations." The woman in ruby red shifted her weight. Other customers pulled out phones, not recording yet, but ready. Marcus knew those cameras. He'd approved the security system personally. High-definition feeds stored for 90 days, accessible to managers and corporate security. Derek was banking on Marcus being just another customer, someone who'd complain and leave, whose accusations would evaporate against official footage reviewed by David Torres. Derek didn't know Marcus could access those feeds remotely, didn't know every frame was already being archived by Jennifer under legal hold protocols. "I have evidence," Marcus said, "and I'll be filing a formal complaint with corporate headquarters." Derek's smile never wavered. "You do that. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your concerns." The pause before concerns dripped with dismissal. Vanessa leaned against the counter, arms crossed, victorious. In her mind, this was over. Difficult customer handled. Power maintained. Another day in the empire of small cruelties. Marcus glanced at his phone. 73 minutes until the board meeting. He could leave now. File everything through proper channels. Let the system work. Attend the meeting, secure the funding, handle this quietly through lawyers and HR procedures. The woman in ruby red was still watching him. So were others, silent witnesses who'd seen everything and said nothing, whose silence was its own kind of complicity. Marcus thought of his mother's journal. Not the part about bowing. The next line, the one he'd memorized, silence is survival. But survival is not life. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Jennifer, board's assembling early. Where are you? His thumb hovered over the reply. 3 words would end this. On my way. He looked at the abandoned latte still sitting on the counter, at Derek's smug expression, at Vanessa's crossed arms, at the woman in ruby red whose question hung unanswered in the air. I need to go, Marcus said finally. Derek's smile widened. Probably for the best. Marcus walked toward the door. Each step felt like stepping away from his mother, from his father, from every value he'd claimed to build this company on. The brass handle was cold under his palm. Behind him, Vanessa's voice carried, "Some people just love causing problems." Derek's low laugh followed. Marcus stopped. His reflection stared back from the glass door, invisible, dismissed, leaving. His mother had spent 30 years leaving, walking away from insults because rent was due, swallowing anger because business needed protecting, surviving instead of living. And where had it gotten her? Dead at 53, her journal full of dreams her son would never have to bow. But Marcus was bowing right now. Bowing to a board meeting, to investor expectations, to the comfortable fiction that he could fix this later, quietly, without disruption. His phone buzzed. Jennifer, Marcus now $30 million, 3 new cities, hundreds of jobs, or 1 moment of truth. Marcus turned back to face the cafe. Everyone was watching now. Customers, staff. The woman in ruby red who'd asked what he would do. Actually, Marcus said, voice carrying across the suddenly quiet space, "I'm not going anywhere." Derek's expression flickered. "Excuse me?" "I said I'm staying." Marcus walked back to the counter. "And I'd like to see your regional manager. David Torres. Call him now." Vanessa and Derek exchanged glances. Something in Marcus's tone had shifted, the invisible customer becoming visible in ways they couldn't quite name. "Sir, I don't think—" Derek started. "I'm not asking." Marcus pulled out his phone, holding Derek's gaze. "Call David Torres right now, or I will." The cafe held its breath. Derek's jaw worked. Then he pulled out his phone, fingers moving with reluctant efficiency. The call connected. "Dave? Yeah, it's Derek. We have a situation, customer making accusations." A pause. "I don't know, man." "He's being weird about it. Won't leave." Derek listened, nodded, his expression shifting from annoyance to relief. "Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll tell him." He ended the call and smiled at Marcus. "Mr. Torres says you're welcome to file a complaint through official channels. He's happy to review any concerns through proper protocols." "I'm sure he is," Marcus said quietly. "Tell him I'll be here waiting. And tell him to bring the security footage." Derek's smile faltered. "He's not coming down here for one complaint. He will for this one." Something in Marcus's certainty made Vanessa stand straighter, made Derek's confidence crack at the edges. The woman in ruby red was recording now. Phone held steady. Marcus's own phone exploded with texts. Jennifer. Board members. His lawyer. All asking the same question. "Where the hell are you?" He silenced it. Then he sat back down in the corner booth and waited. 43 minutes passed in thick silence. Marcus sat alone in the corner booth, while the cafe moved around him like he was a stone in a river. Customers came and went. Vanessa and Derek served them with perfect professionalism, their earlier cruelty packed away like it never existed. Every few minutes, Derek glanced toward Marcus with poorly hidden irritation. Vanessa whispered to co-workers, nodding in his direction. The story being written was obvious. Difficult customer, probably unstable, definitely annoying. The woman in ruby red had left 30 minutes ago, squeezing Marcus's shoulder as she passed. "I hope you mean it," she'd whispered. Then she was gone, taking her witness testimony with her. Marcus's phone lay face down on the table, still buzzing intermittently. He didn't need to look to know what the messages said. Jennifer's would progress from confused to angry to panicked. The board would be assembled now, waiting. Their investors would be checking watches. His absence was becoming a story. Unreliable CEO, unprofessional, possibly having some kind of breakdown. Maybe they were right. Maybe sitting here waiting for a regional manager, who probably wouldn't come, was the action of someone breaking. Successful people didn't camp out in their own cafes playing undercover boss. They delegated, they trusted systems. They understood that fixing everything personally was the opposite of scaling. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. The cup sat empty, a brown ring staining the bottom. Marcus thought about his father. The man had barely spoken in the months after Marcus's mother died. Just worked the restaurant in silence, cooking for strangers, cleaning alone after midnight. Marcus had begged him to close, to rest, to do anything but continue the endless routine. His father's response, "If I stop moving, I disappear." Marcus understood now. Movement created the illusion of purpose. Stopping meant facing what you'd built, or failed to build. His empire was sick, not dying, but infected with something that spread silently through the bloodstream of his carefully designed culture. And he'd been too busy growing to notice the rot. The afternoon light shifted through the windows, golden hour approaching. Outside, Seattle moved at its usual pace, people rushing, living, unaware that inside this cafe something small and crucial was breaking, or maybe remaking itself. Marcus's phone buzzed one more time. He finally looked. "Jennifer, they voted without you. Expansion funding denied. Call me." His chest tightened. $30 million. 3 years of planning. Gone. He'd lost everything by staying. And he hadn't even won yet. Marcus sat with Jennifer's text glowing on his screen. Expansion denied. His absence had killed it. Board members didn't fund companies with unstable leadership. But sitting in this booth, watching Derek and Vanessa work, Marcus realized something crucial. He didn't want to expand this. Not until he understood what he was expanding. He opened his phone and made a call. Priya Sharma, HR. Her voice was efficient, warm. "It's Marcus. I need every complaint filed about the flagship location in the last 6 months." A pause. "Marcus, where are you?" "Jennifer's been—" "The complaints, please," he heard typing. Then silence, the kind that meant something bad. "There are 17 formal complaints, all about the flagship." "What were they?" "Discrimination, profiling, hostile service. All filed by customers of color, LGBTQ+ customers." Priya's voice tightened. "They were all dismissed by regional management for insufficient evidence." David Torres. "Yes, how did you—" "I'm at the flagship right now. I just witnessed it myself." Marcus kept his voice low. "Priya, I need you to pull Torres's family connections in our employee database." More typing. "Then, his nephew Derek Morrison works as shift lead at—" "Oh no, at the flagship location. The pieces locked together." "Who else?" Derek's employment file lists Vanessa Chen as a reference. They were friends before hiring. Both hired within 6 months. Priya's breathing changed. "Marcus, if Torres has been protecting his nephew, then every complaint was filtered through someone with a personal stake in denial." Marcus closed his eyes. 17 people tried to tell us, and we silenced them. What do you want me to do? Put a legal hold on all security footage from this location, all of it. Then pull Torres's email records. I want every complaint he reviewed, every response, every communication with Derek. That's That requires board authorization. I'm authorizing it as CEO. Marcus, you can't just... I own 43% of this company. I founded it. And right now I'm sitting in a cafe that bears my name watching everything I built turn toxic. Get me those records. Priya was quiet for 3 seconds. Okay, give me 20 minutes. Marcus ended the call. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from clarity. He'd been so focused on growth that he'd stopped auditing the foundation. His phone rang immediately. Jennifer, he answered. I know about the vote. Marcus, what the hell are you doing? The board thinks you've lost it. Investors are calling. We have a PR situation. We have a discrimination situation, Marcus cut in. Systematic. Protected by management. Documented in 17 complaints we ignored. Jennifer went silent. Then tell me everything. Marcus did. Vanessa, Derek, Alicia, the overcharging, the ID checks, David Torres's family connection, the pattern hiding in plain sight. When he finished, Jennifer's voice was different, quieter, harder. How do you want to handle this? I'm going to wait for David Torres. When he gets here, I'm going to show him what I recorded. Then I'm going to fire him, Derek and Vanessa. Then I'm going to visit every person who filed a complaint and apologize personally. Marcus, if you do this publicly, I know, stock price will tank. We'll lose the expansion. Some franchises might pull out. He watched Vanessa laugh at something, carefree and unaware. But if I don't, we're just another company that profits from other people's pain. And I won't build that. I won't be that, Jennifer sighed. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Okay, I'm on my way. And Marcus? For what it's worth, I think your mother would be proud. The call ended. Marcus sat back, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, the weight of choosing truth over comfort. His phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. This is Alicia Morrison. Someone gave me your number. Is this about what happened today? Are you really going to do something? Marcus stared at the message. Then he typed, Yes, I promise. Stay by your phone. He found her contact through the University Coffee Club flyer still in his pocket. Called immediately, her voice was hesitant. Hello? Alicia, this is Marcus Chen. I own Elysian Coffee. I was in the cafe today. I saw what happened to you. Silence. Then You're the CEO? Yes. And I need to ask you something important. What happened today? Has it happened before? Her laugh was bitter. Every time I go there. I stopped reporting it months ago. Nobody cares. I care. And I'm going to fix it. But I need your help. Would you be willing to come back to the cafe? Right now? I don't want to go through that again. You won't. I'll be there. And this time everyone will listen. Another pause. Why should I believe you? Because 17 people tried to tell my company the truth, and we failed them. I can't fix the past, but I can start fixing right now. With you, he heard her breathing, considering. Okay, she said finally. I'll come. David Torres arrived 37 minutes later, storming through the cafe door like a man whose authority had been questioned. He was 50-ish, graying at the temples, wearing a polo shirt with the Elysian logo embroidered over his heart. Derek met him halfway. They spoke in low tones, Torres nodding, his expression hardening. Then Torres approached Marcus's booth. I'm David Torres, regional manager. I understand you have concerns. Marcus stood. They were the same height, which seemed to surprise Torres. I witnessed discrimination. Multiple instances. Recorded them. Torres's smile was practiced. Sir, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. But I can assure you, my team follows all company protocols. If you'd like to file a formal, I would. Right now, with you as witness, Torres's jaw tightened. I don't think you understand how this works. The door chimed. Alicia entered, backpack clutched to her chest, eyes wide with fear and determination. Vanessa saw her first. Her face drained. Perfect timing, Marcus said. He gestured for Alicia to join him. She crossed the cafe on shaking legs. This is Alicia Morrison, Marcus announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. She was discriminated against in this cafe earlier today. Interrogated about her payment card while white customers weren't. Humiliated, driven out. Derek stepped forward. That's my sister. She's your sister. Torres's head snapped toward Derek. You didn't mention... It doesn't matter, Derek stammered. We were just following policy. Show me the policy, Marcus said quietly. The one that says you verify ID for some customers but not others. The one that explains why some people get free cookies and others get interrogated. Show me. Silence. Marcus pulled out his phone. I have video, audio, timestamps. Multiple incidents. He looked at Torres. And I have 17 complaints filed in 6 months. All about this location. All dismissed by you. Want to know what they have in common? Torres's face was stone. I don't know what you think you... They were all filed by customers of color. LGBTQ+ customers. People you decided didn't have sufficient evidence. Marcus stepped closer. Convenient, since your nephew is the shift lead here. Since you had every reason to protect him. The cafe had gone completely silent. Customers recorded openly now. Torres's hand moved toward his phone. I'm calling corporate security. I am corporate, Marcus said, and his voice carried the weight of every boardroom, every decision, every success that built this empire. I'm Marcus Chen. I founded this company, and I'm shutting this down now. The words landed like thunder. Vanessa's face went white. Derek stumbled backward. Torres froze, phone halfway to his ear. Torres's voice cracked. Yes. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. I came here undercover to observe. What I saw was everything this company was built to prevent. Discrimination, cruelty, abuse of power. He held up his phone. It's all recorded, all documented. My legal team is reviewing security footage as we speak. He turned to the watching customers. I apologize to everyone who experienced this, to everyone who witnessed it and felt powerless. This isn't what Elysian stands for, and I take full responsibility for letting it happen. Then he faced Torres. You're terminated. Effective immediately. Derek, Vanessa, same. Security will escort you out. You'll receive severance according to your contracts, but your employment here is done. Torres found his voice. You can't just... We have rights. You had responsibilities, Marcus cut in. You failed them. 17 times you chose silence over justice. That ends now. Priya entered the cafe flanked by 2 security officers and Marcus's lawyer. She held a tablet displaying the security footage Torres had claimed would exonerate his staff. We've reviewed the footage, Priya said, her voice carrying. Mr. Chen's account is accurate. Additionally, we found email evidence that Mr. Torres systematically dismissed complaints to protect his nephew. Torres's shoulders sagged. The fight went out of him. Derek looked at Alicia. Sis, I didn't... Don't, she said, voice shaking but clear. Don't pretend you didn't know. Vanessa was crying now, mascara running. Please, I need this job. So did the 17 people you drove away, Marcus said. Not cruel, just factual. So does Alicia, who should be able to buy coffee without interrogation. Actions have consequences. Security moved in. Within minutes, Derek, Vanessa, and Torres were escorted out. The cafe erupted in whispers, then scattered applause from the woman in ruby red, who'd returned and witnessed everything. Marcus stood in the center of his flagship location, surrounded by staff who looked terrified, and customers who looked vindicated. His phone was exploding with texts. Jennifer, board members, press inquiries flooding in as the recordings spread on social media. He'd lost the expansion, probably damaged his stock price, definitely created a PR nightmare, but Alicia was standing taller. The woman in ruby red was smiling, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt like the man his mother raised him to be. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the renovated flagship cafe, now under new management. The woman he'd promoted, Keisha Washington, who'd worked her way up from barista at a South Seattle location, moved through the space with quiet authority. The changes were subtle but significant. The emerald green aprons now came with name tags that included pronouns. A customer feedback system connected directly to corporate, bypassing regional management entirely. And a community board featured photos of the neighborhood advisory panel, led by Alicia Morrison, now a paid intern in Elysian's outreach program. Marcus had spent those 3 weeks in controlled chaos. The board was furious but couldn't remove him. He still held controlling interest. Stock dropped 11% before stabilizing. 3 franchise owners pulled out. Industry publications ran pieces questioning his judgment. But other things happened too. Applications for employment tripled. Customer satisfaction scores at the flagship climbed higher than they'd been in 2 years. And 17 people, the 17 complainants, each received personal apologies, compensation, and invitations to join the advisory board. The media coverage shifted from scandal to cautious respect. CEO takes radical accountability, read one headline. Another, when undercover leadership reveals uncomfortable truths. Marcus ordered an Americano from Keisha. She smiled, genuine, warm. On the house, Mr. Chen. I'll pay. And please call me Marcus. He paid with a 50% tip and sat in the corner booth, the same spot where everything changed. Alicia walked in for her shift, waving when she saw him. She moved behind the counter with confidence now, chatting easily with Keisha about the community event they were planning. Marcus's phone buzzed. Jennifer. Board meeting in 1 hour. They're reconsidering expansion. Smaller scale, better oversight. You coming? He smiled and typed, yes, on my way. The cafe hummed with authentic warmth now. No performances. No cruelty disguised as policy. Just people serving people, the way his mother had always dreamed. Marcus thought of her journal, the words he'd carried for years. Then he thought of the new line he'd added to every employee handbook, the one printed on posters in every break room. Silence protects systems. Truth protects people. Choose truth. He finished his coffee, perfectly made, honestly earned, and stood to leave. The woman in ruby red sat by the window, working on her laptop. She looked up as Marcus passed. "You did it," she said simply. "We did it," Marcus corrected. "Thank you for asking the right question." She nodded, and Marcus walked out into the Seattle afternoon, carrying the weight of accountability instead of the burden of silence. It felt lighter. Marcus stood on the sidewalk outside the flagship café, watching through the windows as Alicia handed a latte to a customer with careful attention. The golden afternoon light caught the emerald green aprons, transforming them into something that finally matched their promise. He thought about power, how easily it became distance, how distance became blindness, how blindness became complicity. He'd built an empire on values, but forgotten that values don't maintain themselves. They require vigilance, presence, the willingness to risk everything you've built to protect what you built it for. His mother's words echoed one final time. Success means my son will never have to bow his head. But she'd been wrong about one thing. The real success wasn't avoiding the bow. It was knowing when to stand up. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened his mother's journal entry, the one he'd photographed years ago. He read it again, then added a note of his own beneath her words. "Mom, you taught me dignity matters. Today I learned that dignity without action is just philosophy. You bowed so I could stand. Now I stand so others don't have to bow. That's the only legacy worth leaving." He sent the note to himself, a reminder for the next time comfort whispered louder than conscience. Inside the cafe, Alicia laughed at something Keisha said. The sound carried through the glass, unforced, unafraid, free. Marcus smiled and turned toward his car. The board meeting waited. The difficult work of rebuilding waited. The daily choice between easy silence and hard truth waited, but for the first time in years, Marcus Chen knew exactly who he was building for. Power hidden reveals truth. Truth spoken rebuilds trust, and trust earned is the only empire worth having.